Hello, everyone. It's June 17th, 2020, and this is St. Mark's at Midweek. I'm Matt Wright, and we're going to talk music today with Professor Lisa Sylvester, Chair of Vocal Arts and Opera at USC's Thornton School of Music. Even more important, she's St. Mark's Music Director. If you think music performance is facing some pretty serious challenges these days, you are correct. And Lisa is here to help us put things in perspective. Lisa, welcome.
Glad to be here, Matt.
Well, I'm glad you had a minute to talk with us. You are busy on a number of fronts at church at St. Mark's and also at the University of Southern California. You've been professor at USC for how long now?
Gosh, I actually started in 2001. However, I was part-time at that point, adjunct, and, successively added hours and titles and things like that.
And now you're the chair of Vocal Arts and Opera.
I am.
Is that all it's cracked up to be? Is it an administrative nightmare? Is it fulfilling?
It's a lot of work, shall we say, a lot of time. However, it's satisfying and fulfilling when I have the opportunity to shape the program and find experiences for our students, which I think are meaningful and helpful. I love being part of that process. However, there's the other side administratively that takes a lot of time.
My impression just from knowing you through church is that for a department chair, you are very hands-on. So many chairs seem sort of removed in their upper floor office and never really get down on the floor. But I see you working with singers and musicians and doing recitals and covering a lot of bases. And except for this summer, for obvious reasons, you've been in Italy each summer with a group of singers.
Yes.
And so describe what your life is like teaching music.
Well, yes, as chair, and I will say that this across the board in the Thornton School of Music, all of the chairs do teach. We are hands-on with our students. So I teach classes, I do some individual coaching, and I chair the department. So it makes for quite a busy life. However, I know each and every student in our department. So and I think that's important.
How many students in the program that you oversee?
Numbers fluctuate from year to year, but between 50 and 60.
Okay. Now, these students have grown up, for the most part, really working hard and intentionally to get themselves to the level where they can be your student. And if I imagine that if they are part of the Thornton program, that they are among the elite singers in the country.
Well, I would say they're pretty good. We have a pre-screen process, and then they have the live audition process. So there is a fair amount of screening that goes on, and of course they have to be accepted by the university, and that sometimes separates some of the students we're able to accept from some programs that are more conservatory based. So
Okay.
There is that component to it. However, we feel that particular type of student that is successful both academically and musically is the one that will thrive the most in our program.
Now, these students have come to you and they have expectations of a career in music for the most part, either performing or perhaps in academia. I'm sure the range is wide. The events of the last 6 months must have changed the trajectory of a lot of young people's careers. At least if it doesn't change it in the long run, it certainly has impacted their futures in the short run. What are you experiencing just in terms of talking to your students? How they feel, what this means to them, and how you look at a performance program in an age of COVID-19.
Right, Matt. This is our biggest challenge right now. Of course, we want to encourage the students to continue their education and to keep the passion for music alive. Because especially in times like this, sometimes it's music that gets people through, as it
Hmm.
were, emotionally. So I would venture to say that there's always a need for musical voices to be heard. However, there is the practical reality of how can they, sustain themselves in in this career. I mean, just purely financially, how can they do that? And that is really, really difficult right now. So it's a process of uh, reimagining everything, really,
Hmm.
um, and how they market themselves, what opportunities are there, and how they can get paid for them.
Yeah.
Um, so yes, in the near future, it is difficult to say the least. I'm hoping in the long term, uh, there's still enough reason, enough, you know, how should I say this, that the students realize the bigger picture, and stick with it. However, being flexible, being imaginative about how to um, deliver their art form, really.
Hmm. I think people are very resourceful, though. What I'm observing is that people are people are quite resourceful and quite imaginative, and uh, when really put to the test, people come through. People find ways, particularly if they're creative people, they find ways to get it out and get it in front of other people.
Right.
And I'm sure your students are among those people who they're not there because they wake up in the morning and can think of something else they'd rather be doing. This is what makes them get up in the morning, I'm sure.
Exactly. Exactly.
And
And yes, I have been both inspired and um, pleased and proud to see what some of our students have created, even just in 6 weeks time or whatever, since the shutdown began, until graduation. But so yes, I think they have, and I hope that they will continue, uh, to have the strength and um, long term commitment to that.
yeah, yeah. Well, let's move to church. Let's move over to Altadena for a second. You've been the music director at St. Mark's for how long now?
It was beginning in 2014, fall
14. So it's
2014.
been 6 years,
Yeah. Hmm.
and wonderful things have happened to the music program at St. Mark's for lots of different reasons. There lots of wonderful things were happening before, and they continue to build. And we all love the work that the choir does, and the way that the service music is organized, and all the wonderful things that happen musically at St. Mark's. It's been another difficult road for choirs, church choirs all over the place. But
Yep.
with taking our own choir as an example, you guys haven't really been able to sing together since what, February?
Yeah, it was the end of February, or might have been the first weekend in
Yeah.
March, something like that. It was our last. I'd have to look exactly, but yeah, it's been a long time, and it's it's kind of depressing on one side. It really is. That's one of the joys of choral music, singing together,
Mm-hmm.
and we can join together virtually. We can even sing, you know, individually in our own spaces, but we don't hear the others sing with us, and so that's challenging too.
Yeah. Well, technology is getting to a point where it's beginning to be helpful, but it's still a little it still throws people off balance. I think
Right.
I find that it throws me off balance a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Looking forward, is is there a way that we can begin to get people to start singing together, either virtually or in person, or is that still a ways off at the moment?
Well, I think the first possibility of singing together would probably happen outdoors. So we can begin to take a look at that. And of course, we would be, spaced
Hmm.
appropriately and things like that. But the key factor of being able to do that outside is that the aerosols that we produce when we sing
Yeah.
would not be trapped in a room, and thus, much less likely to, be infectious. Um, so that's the first possibility of
Okay.
singing together.
Good. That would, you know what? That noise would be welcome.
Yeah, and I think several of us would be welcome to make it.
Well, Lisa, thank you very much. I appreciate the time, and I'm excited. I'm excited for what's coming in the future. I know it's difficult to predict what's going to happen with worship and what's going to happen with music, but I have a lot of faith that people will find a way to sing their songs and be heard.
Yes, I look forward to that too.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
That's it for this edition of St. Mark's at Midweek. Thanks to our associate producers, Emily Wright and Lucy Grindon. Another update from St. Mark's next Wednesday and our regular worship podcast on Sunday. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and be good to each other. I'm Matt Wright.